Obviously, I'm on mute. Like, yes, first thing in the morning. So I apologize for that. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And today we are back again with another episode of The Serene View. I'm Serene Singh. And as all of you know, currently we are going through a whole series on workplace mental health. And today I have the man who wrote the book on learned hopefulness. This is Dan Tomasulo, and Dan is here together with us. Dan is a clinical psychologist. He is the academic director here at Columbia University and the best teacher there. He just got the award this year. So we are looking forward, right? Like compare him to all the best teachers you know in your life, right? Inspirational, life-changing, this is what we're looking for today. Yes. No pressure, no pressure. Yes. Also, he is an assistant instructor with UPenn at the positive psychology course. So then, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Over to you.
Well, first of all, thank you. It's quite an honor to be here. I guess the thing that I can say is that I came to positive psychology through a difficulty I was having in my own life, and I was already a psychologist, and I realized that none of the things that I had learned in my career were really very helpful in kind of pulling me out of a bad mood and getting me engaged and motivated. And I started to look around and see what the science had to say about this. And this was right at the beginning with the positive psychology movement. And I was fascinated with the literature and the research. And I decided to go take another degree and work with Martin Seligman over at the University of Pennsylvania, and I haven't looked back. I just found that what they were doing was so revolutionary, and it changed me. And then I became very excited about wanting to help others learn how to change.
This is going to be your most favorite quote for today, right? Like you're on mute. Yes. Yes, this is going to be your most favorite. So no, I was going to say that I expected you to say so much more about yourself. I mean, guys, this is the guy who wrote the book on learn hopefulness. He did write the book, and he has like so much. I actually read your life story, and I thought, like, oh wow, there's so much, in there. He's not going into the gory details. You can read the book. Yeah, we're gonna sell them. Yes. So, tell us a little bit more. What is learn hopefulness?
Well, I'll sprinkle in some of the background along the way, because one of the things that I learned when I didn't feel so good myself, when I was getting depressed, was, and by the way, there is nothing worse than a depressed psychologist. I can tell you that, right? And although I was having supervision and therapy and things like that, nothing was really working very well. And I knew all the theories and I knew all the techniques. But if you take a look at how psychology has been organized, it's really been based on a medical model. So the history of psychology has only been about alleviating suffering. And I am all for that. I think that's a really great thing. But there was never anything about positivity. If you go back and look at early psychology books, they don't even have the word love in there. 20 years ago, they didn't even have love in a psychology book.
But what is this? I mean, what is the difference? I mean, what's the new thing about learn hopefulness? Because I guess we have all kind of heard of positive psychology, look on the bright side, make sure that you are, focus on what is positive and so on. But this learn hopefulness is a new term that comes to me. Is it like, trying to be hopeful?
I can understand why people would think that, but it's actually much more specific. What we've learned through lots of really good science is that it's not what happens to you that matters, it's how you respond that matters. So, as an example, when we study trauma, and I was a trauma expert before I became a positive psychologist, I used to think about, well, something happened and that thing caused the person to have a traumatic reaction. And while it looks that way, the truth of the matter is, if two people are exposed to exactly the same trauma, they don't respond necessarily the same way. So, learned hopefulness is learning to regulate your perception. You're regulating how you see something. You're regulating your way of taking information in because that's the key.
I see. So essentially, it's about how you choose to respond to trauma. Then what's the difference between that and resilience? Isn't that like kind of the same thing? Are you
Well,
saying that's a new
yeah, no,
term?
again, a great question, a great question. But resilience, when you think about it, is about bouncing back. And basically, what we know about that is that if people get hit by something, there's some emotional trauma or work trauma or something like that, um, they might indeed bounce back. But 80% of people relapse. Now, think about that. They relapse from a depression. So they might get depressed, they might get pushed back, and they'll bounce back, but then they relapse. They keep going back. So I want you to think about that. Supposing you had a business where 80% of what you manufactured failed, you wouldn't be in business very long.
So are you trying to say that actually resilience doesn't work? Because I mean, when we tell people all to be resilient, then after that they will unresilient themselves again. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, what I'm saying is we need a different model because resilience only brings you back to zero, right? What I'm saying is it's not about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward. If you understand at the core of what hope really is, hope is the only positive emotion that requires negativity or uncertainty to be activated. So none of the other positive emotions, happiness, joy, interest, any of those things, none of them require negativity or uncertainty. So that means we have the raw makings of hope all around us. There's a lot of negativity and uncertainty. But if you are just relying on being resilient, what that'll do is that will help you to become able to come back. But we started to study the 20% that not only came back, but stayed out of a bad place and then moved forward. And what they were doing was qualitatively different than people who were resilient or just recovering from a depression. They were doing something that involved activating and cultivating hope.
I see. So this is a kind of a systematic way of cultivating hope and actually thinking a different way so that you don't go back
Yes.
through. But the fact is that we will still face negative circumstances like this COVID that's been going on, right? I mean, this has been a year and counting. I don't see the end of it coming. I'm looking at the situation in India. So it's like, yeah, I mean, if I am like constantly positive, aren't I kind of just denying what's happening around me?
Well, what a great question. Again, really terrific thinking on your part. But you have to think about what we're talking about because it isn't a negative thought that puts us in a bad place. It's the rumination of negative thinking. It's the repetitive negative thinking that keeps us held back. So when I introduce this, one of the first things I introduce is the idea of having gratitude. Now, gratitude is one of the really unique positive emotions because gratitude is always about something that's taken place already. And this is something I work with right away with people in trying to understand hope. If I said to you, "How was yesterday?" and people say, "Oh, yesterday was it was terrible," whatever. And but if I asked you, Tell me three things that you have gratitude for that happened yesterday. It changes the default network that your brain was using to just think about yesterday, because it would do an easy pickings. But now what it does, now it's specifically looking for good things. And when it does that, it will not only recognize and highlight them, but you take that positivity, harvest it, and bring it into the moment. That just keeps you from that downward spiral of negative thinking.
I understand this, sort of like being obsessed with negative thinking, but I kind of, I'll be very frank. I have friends whose families are back in India, whose
Hmm.
families were in Israel when they had that bombing a couple of weeks ago. I have friends whose families are in real situations, and to say that, hey, you know what, you shouldn't be thinking negatively, right? I don't think that's happening, honestly. And if they start to think nothing but positive thoughts, I will be seriously scared for them. I would like call a clinical like psychologist in for them. Like,
Yeah, but
so
positive psychology is about being whole, not about not being negative. If I'm trying to get across the railroad tracks while the gates are coming down, it's not a good time to be optimistic, right? It's really for me to recognize that negative and positive go together. It's just that if the negativity outweighs the positivity constantly, our body is going to go into a threat response. We're going to start pumping cortisol through our veins constantly, and then we get even sicker. And what we find out is that people who are depressed or who have negative thoughts often have this threat response, and then they move into having illnesses, chronic illnesses, and their lives are shorter. So this isn't just about ignoring negative things, it's about trying to reestablish balance and wholeness.
Um, and so I guess your idea is really that we should think of both the negative and the positive, right? That means obviously the negative would be a big part of what's happening right now, but we should
Hmm.
also focus on the positive, whatever little that is.
Hmm.
And my honest question is, would that be enough? Like, if there's just like two slivers of hope, out
Hmm.
there, is
Yeah.
that really enough to stave off the like mass,
Yeah. Well, let
negative?
me, yeah, let me respond by saying, if you're falling off a cliff and somebody throws you a half-inch rope, you're going to say, nah, gee, I really like a 1 inch rope. You're going to grab what's there. And what I'm saying, if you embrace the idea of learned hopefulness, is that there's a way for you to prevent yourself from sliding back. There are ways for you to maintain where you have gained, and there are really cool interventions. I'll mention a few of them in a couple of minutes. There are really cool interventions that keep you leaning forward into the future, because the issue is that it's a risk assessment of our future that will either keep us stuck or liberate us.
I see. I mean, that really does. I mean, make sense. I'm still on. No, but I'm not on mute anymore. You
No,
still
you
talking
you,
to me?
you
Oh, okay, okay.
no, yeah. Sorry,
No,
sorry.
no, but so I guess this is what you're talking about, right? How it contributes to our mental health. Just that little sliver of hope can change how we look at things and how we are, how that happens for our mental health.
Hmm.
But you were telling me that there was a lot of science. There's a lot of, I mean, it's not just because this is what I asked him earlier on, like, before we got on this call. Like, isn't this like new agey, namby pamby stuff, right? That's it. No, is
Mm-mm.
there any science behind it? And obviously, Dr. Dan, the best teacher, has given me all of the science research. So tell us what is the research behind this? Like, I mean, just quote us some good results that you have had.
Well, let me start with a real classic one. It's about 20 years old now, but it really woke everybody up. The technical term they used was the nun study, although it was actually about a group of sisters who were in a secure environment, a convent, and they did something really interesting in this study. They went back, and most of the sisters, when they first looked at them, were like in their 60s. But they went back and they took a look at their entrance essays when they were in their early 20s. when they were trying to get in. And they extracted the words from these essays and were able to categorize them as very positive words, like I'm coming here because I'm looking for divine love and want to dedicate my life to a calling. Somewhat positive, somewhat negative, and then rather negative terms that they were using in these essays. So they had four different quartiles, right? And they were able to break these letters up in such a way that these four different layers were now going to be compared to how well the nuns were doing in their life. So they've already lived a good chunk of their life, and they wanted to see if their temperament, the way that they used their words when they were in their 20s, really had any effect downstream. Well, what they found out is that by age 85, the people who were in the top quartile were living like three times longer than the people in the bottom quartile. And when you get to age 95, what you started to see is over half the people in the top quartile were alive and like 11% in the bottom quartile. This is the first time that they were able to show temperament and longevity.
I'm sorry to say this, but what if I don't really want to live such a long life, right? Like, I mean, what's to tell me whether that life was good?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you have studies that tell me that I will live better, like, be more successful?
Mm-hmm. Well, here's just a couple of things. What we find out is that people who are ranked as being happy will have fewer chronic illnesses. The Harvard study was very clear on that. They'll have fewer chronic illnesses. They'll have better relationships. They'll have better sleep. Right. In other words, if you look at positive emotions do something different to our body than negative emotions. If I have a negative thought, what's going to happen is it's going to trigger a threat response. If I'm worried about something, we're still very primal at a core level, and it'll trigger this sense that I'm under attack. Which means I'm going to produce cortisol, which is going to shorten the little telomeres at the end of my cells, which is going to weaken my immune system, and I'm not going to be very healthy. And if I do positive emotions, I'm going to generate something known as oxytocin, or that my vagal tone will change. In other words, emotions that are positive have a biochemical effect. And how about you and I do an experiment right here? I'll give you a sample. You ready?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
ready.
here we go. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for just a second, right? And I want you to imagine a lemon.
Before we start, can all of the people who are listening to us also do this? Like, if it's okay, only if it's
Absolutely.
convenient for you and you're not driving,
Yeah,
please close your eyes as well. Yes.
you're not driving, right?
Yes.
Right. Close your eyes, and I want you to imagine you smell just the slightest hint of a lemon.
Right. Okay.
And then I'd like you to imagine you see a whole lemon in front of you.
Uh-huh.
And now I'd like you to put that lemon on a plate
Uh-huh.
and cut that lemon in half. And
Right.
as you see the juice of the lemon running onto the plate, I'd like you to imagine that you're smelling just a little bit more lemon, right?
All right.
And
Okay.
now take half of that lemon and bring it up underneath your nose and take
Okay.
a very deep, deep, deep inhale. And now what I'd like you to do is bite into that lemon very hard. Bite into it.
Ow.
Whoa, right. Now, if you open your eyes, the
Right.
chances are really good you produce saliva
I
in the back
did.
of your
Yes.
throat, right? You have to
Yes.
think about that. There's no lemon. There's no
That's
lemon juice.
true.
There's no lemon
That's true.
smell. There's no
That's
plate and
true.
no knife, right? You did that all with the power of your mind. Can you imagine what happens biochemically? I just changed your biochemistry by having you imagine a lemon. Can you imagine if you have chronic negative thoughts, what that's doing to your body? That's pumping cortisol through it and setting you back on your heels, right? Whereas, if you'd indulge me once more, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
close your eyes and
Okay.
imagine a person you love and you know loves you in front of you.
Right. Okay. Yes.
As you're doing that, I'd like you to think about where you feel that person's love in your body and just put your hand there. Where would that be? Right.
You can't
Most
see it, but
people,
it's on my heart. Yes.
yes, right?
I
So
have
if you
to
open
sit a
your,
bit taller so you can see it. Yes.
if you think about that, just open your eyes. Most
Mm-hmm.
people, when they feel love, will touch their heart. Well, why
Mm.
is that? Just a few seconds ago, we imagined a lemon and stuff happened in the back of your throat. But when we imagine love, we touch our heart because it's producing oxytocin, and our vagal tone, the vagus nerve, the thing that connects our heart and mind, is changing because we're feeling love. The person isn't in front of you, and yet you changed your biochemistry just by bringing them to mind. And as one of my students so aptly put it, they said, "So we have a choice every day if we're going to have lemons or lovers."
Yes, I even have the light of the light of love shining on me. I realized this, but
There
anyway,
you go.
yes. Oh, okay. I guess I come from. I mean, I'm from Singapore, and for those,
Mhm.
I mean, if you've never heard of us, we are a very the word, the local word is kiasu. It really means that we tend to be a nation of being over prepared. We have
Yes,
higher anxiety indicators.
I've been to your
You've been
airport,
to the country,
and I
okay? So you
agree.
understand. You understand. You agree, yes. So, but the thing is this, right? So I'm born and bred Singaporean, and I will say this, right? So the reason why we are like that is because we believe that we should be ready for any threat. And
Yes,
we were recently like awarded the safest country in the world for COVID.
yes,
And I would
yes.
say that all that preparation, all that, being on standby all the time paid off, worked. And there are many, many examples I can give you of that, where, Singapore has over prepared by any other country's standards, but then when something happens, it turned out to be just right. So my question to you is this: you say that negative emotions is in a state of being under constant threat, right? We are constantly preparing for the next threat, and that is our national character. And I don't think that has like kind of turned out bad so far.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
you're really talking about two different things, though. If I can, take a moment with that, right? If somebody is worrying about something, and they feel responsible, but they're not taking any action on it, that's rumination. That's a negative thought that's going around. So if you said, "Oh my goodness, what are we going to do about COVID?" Gee, I don't know. Boy, I'm really worried we're going to get it. Boy, what should we do? That's one thing. But if you have a worrisome thought that then activates your response. You have to really think about this. The negative thinking is part of hope, right? Hope's the only positive emotion that requires that. So when you have the negative thought, it motivates you to take action on the future. You don't stay stuck in the present or the past where you don't, and you're not just worrying, you're saying, oh, this could happen. What are we going to do? So what I would say is that the people of Singapore are perhaps the most hopeful because they converted their negative thinking into direct, solid action that was extremely helpful because it was future oriented. And that's the difference between rumination of negative thinking that will tear you down because you're not taking action to correct it, and something that activates a hopeful response, which is about how you're changing perception about the future.
Right. So thank you very much. I mean, I think that I appreciate that sort of differences. So it's like really being stuck in the past and being stuck in hopelessness, all that negative emotion, and actually moving forward, going like, okay, this is a real threat. Let's do something about this, right? Yes.
Yes, yeah.
And those of us, I mean, today, I don't know, people have been very quiet today, right? Like I don't know, are you just awed by this teacher, like the best teacher? Oh, we are so awed, right? No, it's okay. He won't scold you, right? he can't score you,
I
even on
can't score
LinkedIn,
you.
right?
Yes.
He can't score you. So write in your questions. Do you have any questions for Dr. Dan? Like, let us know, or anything that you object to. I know I've been objecting to him all morning, but anything you object to, anything that you want him to address in the areas of positive psychology, in the areas of hope, right? So just throw in your questions, and also whether you agree that we can and should learn hopefulness, or whether you think that negative emotions is the way it is, right? Do you agree? Oh, okay. So we have Michael coming to tell us. Oh, something. Thank you so much, Michael. We appreciate it. Yes,
Thank you,
we'll
Michael.
confer. We'll confer Best Teacher Award from the survey review as well. Yes.
That's right.
No, but like, send us your questions. Send us what you think about it, and whether you actually agree, with this. And so what happens is, I think most of my listeners are business leaders. We want to think about. I mean, this is all well and good, but can we actually apply this at the workplace? I mean, how would you suggest that we apply this to an organization?
Yeah, I think that there are three things that I would highly recommend. The first is what I call micro goals. Micro goals are to set tasks for yourself that are very short in duration, 15 or 20 minutes. One of the things that happened during COVID is that people had their goals knocked out of the sky. They would just, oh my goodness, I can't get that goal anymore. And that's what causes us to have a setback. And so micro goals are setting 15 or 20 minutes. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to answer these 3 emails. In the next half hour, I'm going to be able to clean this closet. It sounds small, but what happens with micro goals is that you get a little bit of hope initiated into the future. And what I mean by that is, when you set that goal and you achieve it, hope is bi-directional, meaning that that little achievement gives you some feedback that says, oh, I'm on the right track. So most of my day now is broken up with dozens and dozens of very, very, very small micro goals, because it keeps me engaged in what's going on, right? The second thing is, I would encourage you at least 3 times a week, the moment you wake up in the morning, to do a gratitude review from the day before and ask yourself the question, what 3 things do I have gratitude for from the day before? And for the first month, I'd encourage you to write it down. And what this does, and there's a lot of good research to show this, that if you are doing this pretty much every other day, what this will do is it'll change the way you think about yesterday. It'll harvest that positive emotion, bring you into the present. And what we know about that is that it makes you more optimistic for the future. And the third and final thing I'll say about this is to really take the time to nurture and cherish your relationships. If I want to know how long you're going to live and how well you're going to live, all I have to do is look at the quality of your relationships. And that means nurture your friendships. Make sure you stay connected to people. Let people know you're thinking about them, and be able to meet. If it has to be virtual, make it virtual. But those 3 things, micro goals, gratitude, and relationships, are really powerful, solid ways to promote your positivity.
I guess to link it back to the organization, I was just wondering, right? I mean, micro goals sounds like something that you can do for yourself. Is that something you can do for an
Yes,
organization? Can we say, like,
sure.
let me set you a 15-minute goal as an
Yeah,
organization?
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. Well, but the truth of the matter is, look at what devastated most organizations, right? They had a quarterly goal or a yearly goal, and their annual goals were shattered. And once you have shattered assumptions about your future, You really have to change your perception rather rapidly. And remember, that's what learned hopefulness is about. It's about regulating your perception. It's like, okay, I can't do this, but maybe I can do this. So restaurants that couldn't have any indoor seating, what did they do? They changed. They started having takeout orders and fast delivery and things like that. That people had to change the goals that they were working on. So that's one thing. The other thing is something known in business as HERO, HERO, and it stands for hope, um, self efficacy, which is really confidence, resilience, and optimism. And they find that the workers that have these four traits are really, the backbone of an organization. And some new research has come out and says that really, if you're going to hire people with the highest hope scores that you can find, because the truth is, they'll deal with everything. They're already resilient. They're already optimistic. They're already got some self confidence. And what they'll do is they'll learn how to get through every obstacle that comes to them.
I don't know about you since you are in the field of positive psychology, but the endlessly positive people annoy the out of me. I just had a conversation about toxic positivity with somebody else last week, right? Because,
Hmm.
I mean, they were saying, I have so many clients where, we're all one big happy family and there are no problems here. And everything is swept under the carpet and we all keep smiling on even and pretending that COVID doesn't exist outside of our company.
Yeah, yeah,
There
yeah.
are people like that right now.
Yeah, what a great question. A couple of different things about it. The idea behind positive psychology is about, um, answering the question, what makes life worth living, right? And it's not about stopping negativity. I live in the Northeast, and so if the sign says thin ice on the lake and it's wintertime, I'm not going to go ice skating. We need pessimism. We need negativity. It's central. What positive psychology is doing is really trying to make us whole again, because we've slipped into this downward spiral where we have this negativity kind of pulling us down and in, and there seems to be no way to get out of it. And none of the traditional tools in psychology had really helped very much. And so this gives us a way of just establishing a balance. Yesterday was not a good day, but good things happened even so. This gives us a little bit more of a balanced framework. I start all my classes off asking students to talk about a rose, a thorn, and a bud. Tell me something good, a success that you've had this week. Tell me something that's been a challenge for you this week. And tell me something on the horizon. Because in order for us to be whole, we have to think in a whole way.
I think that's a wonderful exercise. What the people who are listening to us, right, write that in now, right? A rose, a thorn, and a bud, right?
Uh,
What is one great thing that happened to you last week? What is one problem you had to overcome, and what is one hope? Is it the last one is a hope? A
The,
hope
the
you
bud,
have.
the bud. It's sort of like, what's a good expectation? What's coming? What's
Okay.
something on the horizon, right? A rose, a thorn, and a bud. And I dare I say, I encourage people to do that at business meetings, just to warm people up. A little self disclosure is good. We do it at our faculty meetings, and the faculty, bring stuff in that they're thinking about. It makes us connect with one another. It's not all good. It's not all bad. It's whole.
Okay. Right. So, those of you who are listening to us, and I think Michael was saying that he completely agrees with what we are saying. And write in, Michael. Like, tell us, what is one good thing that's happened to you last week? What is one challenge, and what is one positive development that you're expecting not long into the future? Right. A rose, a thorn, and a bud. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was going to also say that, like, if I am a leader and I kind of know that things are hard and things are tough. What can I do to support? Oh, sorry, next one, wrong question. What can I do to support my people? Should I set micro goals? Should I just like fire the people who don't have hope, right? Like, no,
Yeah.
they're not happy, they're not positive, like,
Point
oh, out
radio
you go,
score,
right?
you're out.
Yeah, right, out you go. I'm going to replace my team with only hopeful and positive people, right? I mean, what should I do for my people?
Well, I think the first and foremost thing is if you're in a leadership position, that you lead by example. And so what that means is you need to be a whole person. You can't be one side all negative or all positive. You have to be both inspiring and whole at the same time. So it's not an easy task because it won't matter what you say if you're saying one thing and doing another. So the more if you look at what a business really needs these days, it's understanding that everybody brings a certain set of characteristics. They bring their strength of character to work, right? If I were to ask you, tell me about your favorite teacher. What did that teacher do for you, right? What do you remember about them? People don't say what a great algebra teacher or something like that. They usually mention a trait. They were very kind. They were very generous. They were very humble. They remember a character trait. So the way a leader can be helpful to employees is by noticing what their natural gifts are, their natural character traits, and try to make sure people are in jobs where they can be authentically who they are, because then they'll flourish and your business will flourish. We use something called character strengths, and there's a measure for that. If you go to viacharacter.org, every language, it's in every language, and you can get that for free, and you'll see your top 5 character strengths. And these top 5 character strengths are your essence. They are authentically who you are in life. And once you know that that's who you are, you can start doing something called strength spotting as a leader for those people when they display their authentic selves.
And I guess so. I've put it up viacharacter.org. I
It's
think
a
that's correct.
V. It's a V.
Oh, VIA. So I apologize for that. Let
It's
me
okay.
let me write viacharacter.org. Okay. And so this is the one. So those of you who
Yeah.
want to go and look at character strength, you can. And I'm a strengths coach myself. I'm certified with
Yes.
Gallup. And one of the issues I get with telling people that is that people will go like, oh, but I think I should work on my weaknesses. I know what are my strengths, and I think I should work on my weaknesses.
Yeah. Well, the research is extremely clear about that, and I shouldn't give the secret away, but I'm a business consultant, right? And people always say that all the time. Oh, we got to work on the weaknesses. Well, you're doomed if that's what you do, because you have to think about it, right? If people have weaknesses and um, uh, immediately you ask them to improve their weaknesses, what'll happen is they will fail systematically. Right? They will fail systematically, and then they'll get despondent about the whole thing. Right? And so this idea is you have to take the things you're good at and use them to develop the things that you're not good at. That's a much better way to go for it rather than just try to improve the Noah one. I will tell you, I've worked for some very large companies who still have this attitude. And it's not until they've failed several times that they'll say, oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, start with what we know how to do and build from there. Yes, lead with your strengths always.
Okay. Very good. We have a response to our earlier question about
Yeah.
a rose, a thorn, and a bud. So Michael has written in to say that during COVID they are getting their staff to do live FB, and they did very well. So that was congratulations, Michael.
Yes. Great.
Yes.
Great. Great.
And because it's their first time, so they're kind of getting used to it. There's a bit of a challenge. And then
Hmm.
there's hope for the company to expand, for them to enhance their capabilities and sharpen their skills. Very good. So
Excellent.
I hope, as a business leader yourself, that you will be doing that, right? So going out to your people, starting your conversations with what is a rose, a thorn, a bud, yeah, and also with micro goals. Yeah. So from now on, only set 15 minutes goals for your staff.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, it's nice because if we set the goal too far and we don't make enough progress towards it, we lose our sense of engagement and spontaneity with it, and then we lose energy, and then we lose enthusiasm, and it goes the other way.
Mm. Right. Okay. So, do you have any questions, Michael? Or actually, anybody else who's listening to us? Do you guys have any questions? Anything you want to talk to us about? And also, I wanted to know, right? Okay, so now I'm sold on this, learned hopefulness. I think that I'm going to like do it. Is the three, like goals, basically what Michael said, like goals, gratitude, as well as relationship? Is that what is necessary? Oh, wait, we have a question. Let's see. It says a client asked for a quotation and later told me they'll be putting the deal as a tender. So they feel disappointed. Oh, so there's an answer as well. But they personally invited her and engaged her, and she felt grateful because she feels that there's hope that you'll get a tender. Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
Peggy.
Nice. Nice.
Thank you
Nice.
very much. Very nice. Thank you. And we
Well
all
put,
hope you get
Peggy.
a tender as well. We are learn hopefulness. We are hopeful you will get the tender. Okay. And they get the staff to do daily gratitude. So that's
Yes.
something that they do.
Yep.
Yes. And tell us, right? I mean, those of you who are practicing this, does it make any difference? Have you guys like noticed anything before and after, doing these gratitude practices or stuff? Or is it like it worked in, I don't know, it worked in University of Columbia, but it doesn't work here. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, did it work for you? Do you have any like difference in results? Let us know. What do you think? Okay. So the last one that we were talking about, like so as individuals, I guess it's the three things, right? Micro goals, gratitude, you know, being nurturing our relationships. Do you have any like the one thing that you must do daily?
There's a it really depends on your self-assessment. So I'm fortunate that I have dozens and dozens and dozens of tools that either I've developed or I've learned about. So when I wake up in the morning, I'll do a very quick assessment of what do I need. And some mornings I wake up and my to-do list is wrapped around my throat. I'm sure everybody on this call knows about that, right? And if I feel like too anxious or too negative, there are techniques and methods that I'll use to just get me grounded so that I don't start my day in a downward spiral. If I wake up and I'm in a sort of a neutral place where it's like, okay, I'm ready for the day. Well, I'm going to start doing some gratitude exercises from the day before because that's going to start to fuel the positivity and lean it in that direction. And on those days when I wake up and I actually feel good, I got a great night's sleep. I got many of the things on my to-do list done, and I wake up and I feel pretty good. I'm going to use techniques and methods that will savor this experience and extend it because it's not like, oh, I feel good now, back to work. It's sort of like, oh, wait a minute, let's do something to stretch this out. So I'm making this just kind of cut and dry, but believe it or not, there are dozens of interventions about the past, dozens in the present, and dozens in the future. So what you do is I usually try a mix of like, okay, let me do this and this. And if there's one thing that is a sure winner, no matter what, is to be kind to someone. Kindness is one of the few positive emotions that's got this really solid ripple effect. If I do something kind for Serene and somebody witnesses me doing that, not only will I feel good for having done it, and Serene will feel good for having received it, the person watching it or learning about it will feel just as good as both of us through an act called elevation. So those are the kind of things where those are win-win no matter what.
I wanted to just kind of bring you back to what you said in the beginning. Like if you wake up and you are anxious and your to-do list is killing you, because I think a lot of us are waking up in that state throughout
Yes.
this pandemic. Waking up with really high anxiety about what's happening.
Hmm.
What else? Just share with us a couple of very effective tools that you feel anybody will be able to use.
Yeah, I will tell you about one that we're actually in the middle of doing some research on, and the preliminary results are great. We've taken an ancient meditation technique called Tonglen, Tonglen, and it is a breathing technique, and it's one of the few meditations that has a transformative property with negativity. So, one of the things you do is you would imagine your anxiety as a dark cloud.
Is this the
Eh,
correct spelling? Tongling?
T O
T-O-N.
N G L E N.
Oh, L-E-N. Okay. All
Yes,
right.
Tonglen. Tonglen. And uh, and so there's three components to it, right? Basically, you ground yourself by feeling connected to something larger than you. It could be nature, it could be your higher power, it could be the universe, could be spirit, it could be anything, but it just has to be something that you feel connected to that's larger than you. And then you imagine the anxiety in the form of a dark cloud. You first anchor it in your body someplace. So perhaps you feel it in your stomach or your neck or your shoulders. And then you imagine that anxiety in the shape of a dark cloud. And then you inhale that dark cloud through your nose. And when you breathe out through your nose and or mouth, you breathe out a white cloud and you say the words to yourself: joy, compassion, hope, love. And I help people remember that because the second letter is O in all of those. So it's Joko Holo: joy, compassion, hope, love. So you have the anxiety, you breathe in the dark. When you breathe out as a white cloud and say to yourself: joy, compassion, hope, love. And if you do that for 3 minutes, that seems to be showing some good results. Again, they're only preliminary. We need a lot more data on it. But we've taken that ancient meditation and we've condensed it to something very rapid. And we're finding that people who would rank themselves at a 5, very anxious, come back down to a 3 or a 2 in just 3 minutes. So that kind of breathing grounds you, and the thing I really like about it is that it transforms you.
I don't think we have 3 minutes left on the call. We're almost up to an
Okay.
hour already to do this, but I will request this of you. Maybe after this we can just stay on the call for a bit. I'll get the instructions from you, and then we'll send it out as a PDF to anybody who's interested to do this, right? Because I think the instructions are very specific. That's the first thing, and I think it's very helpful for a lot of people right now. I mean, one
Mhm.
of the reasons I started this whole series is because I was burnt out last year. And when I shared that on social media, you will not believe the number of people who wrote back to me and said, me too. People whom
Mhm.
I always thought were really strong, people who seem to be doing very well on the outside. And they all wrote to me to say, yeah, me too. I was burnt out too. And so I think having a tool that really works is backed by research, is
Well, it's
helpful, right? Because
preliminary. I'm going to say preliminary
preliminary
results.
research. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
so I mean, but
Pilot studies.
if you have the time, share me a couple more as well. But I mean, I will put it together as a PDF, and whoever listens to it can just take it off and download it. And the thing is that I think if people can just kind of try it out, because I'm sorry to say this, I think a lot of people are trying very hard to help other people who are in a bad state, but
Sure.
the number of cheerfully, inspirational Instagram pictures I got in that period makes me want to throw my phone against the wall, right? Because,
Yeah. Right.
yes, when you are down and you are really, anxious and stressed out, the last thing you want to know is another sound bite, about
Yeah.
how wonderful life should be, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So no. I think that something that's like this, where there's step by step instructions, and you can do it. Um, I'm
I.
going to say
I.
this. I
I.
hope it's true that you can do it even though you are feeling very depressed and even though you don't believe it. It still works,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that the idea here is that you're also relying on your connection to something greater than you. That's one of the. I'll tell you what. I'll end with a little exercise. Is that okay?
Okay, no, I was going to ask you before we go on. What if I don't feel connected to anything bigger than me?
It's
Like,
not
what
the
if
right.
my
It,
biggest attachment to money is to
it,
money?
Yeah, if that's the case, this wouldn't be the right meditation for you. There's lots of other meditations. This
Right.
one, the thing that helps make it work is that other connection. And so one of the things that I'll do is I'll tell people, let me demonstrate how it works, and then after they go, oh, okay, I understand that. Because if you use words like God or spirit or this or that, some people might get turned off to it, but it doesn't. It just has to be that we're living in a wondrous planet, right, with nature in a universe that we're only starting to understand with planets and solar systems. So if all of that fills you up, that's good enough, right? It's like just whatever it is that's larger than you. But here's what I'll show you the last thing if you'd like
I
to
was going
see.
to ask you, what family work? Like, if I feel like really connected to my family or even to my extended family, would that work? Like, that's
It
something that's
it
larger
needs
than me.
it needs to be closer to something like a higher power, because if it's a transcendent relationship, that'll work. But if it's other people, that is what you see in a loving kindness meditation. And by the way, if you can't do the Tonglen one, I would highly recommend what's called LKM or meta meditation, which is a loving kindness. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So you were going to share something with
I
us.
was going
Sorry
to
for
share something.
interrupting you.
And if you
Yes.
would take your index finger and just put it under your nose and breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your nose. And
Oh, no.
if you put your finger down, what you'll remember about that is that when you breathed in, the air was cooler than when you breathed out. And you didn't have to do a thing to make that happen. Something much greater than you could fully control managed that for you. Tonglen works on the same principle, because something else transforms it. So when people go, oh yeah, that's how I get it. Yeah, so it could be the wonderment of the universe, it could be something like that. But if you're going to use relationship, which is terrific, by the way, a loving kindness meditation, very easy to find on the internet. I would highly recommend that. That's a beautiful way to go.
Okay. All right. And Michael has like replied us about what happens when his staff does daily gratitude, that they feel more confident. Yes.
Absolutely, that's
Yes.
exactly right. That's great. That's right, Michael. Very cool. Very cool.
And I'm glad that you guys are seeing good results with some of these, work and so on. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I mean, we are almost coming to. I actually only asked Dr. Dan for half an hour of his time. We've been talking for almost an hour.
Well, we're having fun. We're having fun.
Yes. And I think, do you guys have any last questions that you want to ask? Like, throw it into the comments. Anything that you want to say, you want to ask of Dan while he's here to share his expertise with us. I definitely feel that I would love to put together something for any of our viewers. I know a lot of us are going through a hard time. In Singapore, last week we started, working and schooling from home again after
Yeah.
not doing it for a year. And just like last year, I found it a challenge. I still find it a challenge. I have a young son at home,
Hmm.
and I think that's true of many, many people out there. And even worse, I mean, the stats are in Singapore at least are home violence help calls have gone up 3 times. The research hasn't come in actually whether it has gone up or not, but the fact that help calls have gone up 3 times is very telling. Right, so that's some issues that we are facing. I think not just in Singapore, but all over the world as we get locked down. And so, if you guys have any questions, anything you want to talk about, yeah, feel free. And I'm going to leave you with one last thing. If you would like to connect to Dr. Dan, this is his LinkedIn. He will be nice, I think, I hope, and stamp your connection, maybe.
Of course, of course.
I know that's a promise, but this is his
Yeah.
LinkedIn connection. If you're interested in this book, this is where you can get it. You can get it from Amazon, and if you are here in Singapore, be aware that the National Library's copies are all booked out. Yes, I tried to get a copy for myself. They're all booked out. But there's many copies available. There's even the audiobook available. I mean, if you need to listen to it, you need to read it. I mean, it's there. And please, go in. Not so much that I think it's not so much what at the end of the day we are, this book or whatever it is. I mean, you can get it for free at the library, but it's what you apply out of it, right? That you will be
Absolutely.
able to change your life out of this rumination of negativity into something that's a little bit more action oriented and into something that's a little bit more helpful. So we have a comment. Oh, Michael says, great. Yes, you can get it from a library. And not only can you get it from a library, you can get an e-copy from a library and you can get an audiobook from a library. So for me, I have been like, I'm sorry, I'm getting to the age where I no longer read much. My eyes are failing me. And so
Yeah.
but it's a wonderful book. And it's written in a way that's very easy to understand. So it's not written in a very academic way. It's written in a way where really you can, understand what needs to be done very easily and very practical. So that's what I really appreciate about the book. Okay, so thank you so much for all your comments. What would you like to leave with our viewers? I mean, our listeners as one last thing.
The thing that I've learned in the last 15 years has been that it takes deliberate effort. It isn't just something that happens. Just like if you want to get in better shape, or you want to eat better, or you want to exercise more, there needs to be a deliberate effort. And so, what I can tell you for certain is that those deliberate efforts, if they're organized in some way and they're regular, they will pay off. They will pay off.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dan. Thank you.
You're very
And
welcome.
thank you. And this is actually the last of all of this series. So I've actually completed 12 sessions of this series. The next series I'll be looking for another topic, but of throughout all of these different interviews, I think I've kind of learned about workplace mental health myself, about the stuff that we can do as people who work in the workplace and even as leaders. So I really hope that this series has been helpful for all of you. And I'll take a little break for 2 weeks, and then after that, I'll come back for another series. So thank you very much, Dr. Dan. I
Thank
hope
you.
that you all guys feel validated that he's the best teacher. I actually do. I feel that he's so inspirational. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yes, I mean, thank you so much for all of you for listening in for all 12 weeks, and thank you, Dr. Dan.
You're
Okay,
very
so see
welcome.
you until the next time. Bye.
Bye bye.